Hello, Matthews Gatos here. In this video, we are going to cover 6 trig ratios in 4 questions. Let's talk about the 6 trig ratios I'm talking about. I am talking about our primary ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, and their reciprocal functions as well. So the reciprocal of sine is cosecant, the reciprocal of cosine is secant, and the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent. So let's get started. In this first question, I have a point that lies on the unit circle. So I know if it's lying on the unit circle, that point tells me something. I want to determine the exact values of the 6 trig ratios. So because it's on the unit circle, I know that the x-coordinate is the cosine of my angle, and the y-coordinate is the sine of the angle. So let's figure out the last 4. So cosine is -1/3. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and that would just be -3/1 or just -3. If sine is 2√2/3, cosecant is the reciprocal of that, which is 3/2√2. Now we do need to rationalize our denominator, so I will multiply top and bottom by √2, and I will get 3√2 all over 4. 2√2 times 2, those √2's is √4, which is 2, multiplied by the 2, which is 4. That's how I got that. Now cotan is found by taking cosine divided by sine. When I divide fractions that have the same denominator, when I multiply by the reciprocal, the denominators are going to end up canceling. So a little shortcut I can do is take the numerator of cosine divided by the numerator of sine, which again I need to rationalize. So multiply top and bottom by √2, and so my answer, final answer, would be -√2 all over 4. Now tangent is the ratio of sine over cosine. These are all on your formula sheet. And since again the denominators are the same, I can just take the numerator of sine divided by the numerator of cosine, and my answer would be -2√2. Now, not every point that we deal with these ratios will be a point on the unit circle. For example, here, I have this point A that's -5, -12, not on the unit circle, but it lies on the terminal arm of an angle drawn in standard position. I want to determine the exact value for the 6 trig ratios. So first thing I'm going to do is make my triangle by dropping a perpendicular line from the end of the terminal arm to the x-axis. And then I'm going to label the sides I have. So I know that x is -5, y is -12. I need to find the radius or the hypotenuse. So using Pythagorean theorem, I am going to take x squared plus y squared equals 2r squared. So I have 25 plus 144 equals r squared, which is 169 equals r squared. Then I'm going to take the square root. Remember, when you take the square root, it's plus minus. Square root of 169 is 13. But the radius, or the hypotenuse of this triangle, can only be positive. So the answer is positive 13. So now I know what the triangle looks like. I can just find all of my trig ratios. So cosine is the ratio of x over r. So that will be -5/13. Secant will be the reciprocal of that, -13/5. So secant is the reciprocal. Okay, sine is the ratio of y over r, which is -12/13. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so -13/12. Cotan is the ratio of, well, let's do tan first, actually. Tan makes more sense to do first. Tan is the ratio of y over x, which is -12/5, which in lowest terms is 12/5. Tangent is the ratio of x over y. So that would be -5/12, which in lowest terms is 5/12. Now, you can also do that as the ratio. So cotan is the ratio of cosine over sine. Since the denominators are the same, you can also see that that's -5/12. So I get the same thing. Tangent is the ratio of sine over cos. So you can see just going in the other way, -12/-5, lowest terms 12/5. So really just matters only matters which preference you have. If you want to use the triangle ratios or dividing the two primary ratios, either is fine. Okay, in this example here, I have information about the triangle. So I know that secant of theta is -7/3, tan is positive. I want the other trig ratios. So instead of working with secant, I know secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so I'm actually going to work with cosine. I like to see my primary trig ratios wherever I can. So cosine is -3/7. That's x over r. So I'll just label that x over r, -3/7. Now, the next thing I want to do is use my cast rule to place it in the correct quadrant. So before I do that, I'm actually going to solve for my y side here. So I know using Pythagorean theorem that I have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So 9 plus y squared equals 49. That makes y squared equal to 40, subtracting 9 from both sides. Now I'm going to take the square root. When I do that, I need to remember it's plus or minus, and then I just break it down into perfect and non-perfect factors. So that will just be plus or minus 2√10. Now, we have to decide what quadrant it's in to know if it's positive or negative. So secant and cosine are negative, tan is positive. So think about a quadrant where cosine is negative and tan is positive. The only quadrant that satisfies that is actually quadrant number 3. So I know it's in quadrant number 3, and I want to place my y value in quadrant number 3, and I know y is negative. Okay, so now I know all the sides of my triangle. I can find the other trig ratios. So looking at that, I'm going to do cosine. Cosine is x over r, -3/7. Secant, we were given that. That's just the reciprocal, -7/3. Now, sine is y over r, so that's going to be -2√10/7, and I reduce if I can. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's r over y. So that will be -7/2√10. Keep the negative in the numerator. And then I will just rationalize my denominator. So I get -7√10 all over √10 times √10 is 10, times the 2 that's already there is 20. Okay, cotan, two different ways you can do it. You can do it as the ratio of cos over sine, or you can do it as the ratio of x over y. Either is fine. So I'm going to go x over y, which is the same as cos over sine. So since the numerators are denominators are the same, I'm just going to do numerator divided by numerator. Numerator of cos divided by numerator of sine. So two negatives make a positive. And then I just need to rationalize my denominator by multiplying top and bottom by √10. So then I have 3√10 all over 20. That would be cotan. Now, tangent, I could just flip cotan, but if I made a mistake with cotan, I would make that same mistake with tangent. So let's try tangent. Tangent is y over x, or numerator of sine divided by numerator of cosine, since the denominators are the same. Either way, you're going to get -2√10 all over -3. Two negatives make a positive, so I have 2√10 over +3. So there I have all 6 of my trig ratios. Okay, in the last question here, I'm going to work with secant. I know the ratio of secant, but I want to find the angle that satisfies that equation in the restricted domain from -180 to +180. Okay, so instead of working with secant, I want to work with my primary trig ratio, which is cosine. So what do I know? I know that if secant is equal to -10.366, and secant is the reciprocal of cosine, if I know what the secant ratio is, I can take the reciprocal of that ratio and know what cosine is. So the reciprocal of this would be 1, I'm going to put the negative in the top, -1 over 10.366. So these are reciprocals of one another. So working with cosine, and I do that because on my calculator, to go backwards and find the angle, I don't have a secant inverse button. but I do have a cos inverse button. So what I want to do is I want to find the reference angle, and the reference angle is going to be, and I only want the positive value, so I'm going to do that the reference angle is the cos inverse of 1 divided by 10.366. This will give me my reference angle. So make sure that you're in degree mode. And now I know my reference angle is about 84 degrees. Now, I'm not forgetting the fact that cosine was negative, so I want to look at where is cosine negative. I know cosine is negative in this quadrant and in this quadrant. So to find my first one, 0 to 180, that would be there. This would be my positive angle. And then I also have negative 180, so 0 to negative 180. I have an answer there. So here will be a positive angle. Here will be a negative angle. So to figure out what those are, in quadrant number 2, I haven't made it to 180. I'm short 180. I go backwards from 180, 84 approximately degrees. So what I'm going to do is just subtract 180, take away 84, and I get that my first angle is 95.5. So I'm going to say that my first angle is approximately 96 degrees. Okay, my second angle, haven't made it all the way to negative 180. I'm short of that. So in this time I'm going to do negative 180. I'm going to add my reference angle to find out what my negative angle is. So that is going to be negative 96, approximately negative 96 degrees. Now, to know if I've done that right or not, I'm always a big fan of the check. So I want to check this question. Okay, so going back to the original, secant of my angle is negative 10.366. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So when I enter this into my calculator, I'm going to do 1 over cos of the angle I just got and 1 over cos of the negative angle I just got. And you can see in both cases, they equal to negative 10.336. So that means that I did the question right, and it fits within my domain restriction. So I hope this video helped. If it did, give it a thumbs up so I can help more mathies like you, and I'll see you for the next one.